Criminology Board Exam Reviewer. Forensic Ballistics. Part 2. Firearms Terminology. 1. Action. It is the part of the firearm that loads, fires, and ejects a cartridge. It includes lever action, pump action, bolt action, and semi-automatic. The first three are found in weapons that fire a single shot. Firearms that can shoot multiple rounds. Repeaters include all these types of actions, but only the semi-automatic does not require manual operation between rounds. A truly automatic action is found on a machine gun. 2. Barrel. It is the metal tube through which the bullet is fired. 3. Black powder. It is the old form of gunpowder invented over 1,000 years ago and consisting of nitrate, charcoal, and sulfur. 4. Bore. It is the inside of the barrel. 5. Breech. It is the end of the barrel attached to the action. 6. Bullets. It is a projectile propelled by firearm, sling, airgun. They are shaped or composed differently for a variety of purposes. Round nose. The end of the bullet is blunted. Hollow point. There is a central cavity in the bullet nose not covered by a metal jacket that creates expansion when a target is struck, creating more damage. Action 4. Hollow point projectile made of non-fragmenting brass with radiopaque plastic tip. Hydra shock. Hollow point projectile with soft deformable anterior and hard posterior core. Jacketed. The soft lead is surrounded by another metal, usually copper, that allows the bullet to penetrate a target more easily. Wad cutter. The front of the bullet is flattened. Semi-wad cutter, intermediate between round nose and wad cutter. 7. Butt or buttstock. It is the portion of the gun which is held or shouldered. 8. Caliber. The diameter of the bore measured from land to land, usually expressed in hundredths of an inch, .22 caliber, or in millimeters, 9 millimeters. 9. Cartridge, also called a round, packages the bullet, propellant and primer into a single unit within a containing metallic case that is precisely made to fit within the firing chamber of a firearm. Parts of a cartridge. A. Bullet. B. Case, shell. C. Powder. D. Primer. 10. Center fire. It is the cartridge that contains the primer in the center of the base where it can be struck by firing pin of the action. 11. Chamber. It is the portion of the action that holds the cartridge ready for firing. 12. Choke. It is a constriction of a shotgun bore at the muzzle that determines the pattern of the fired shot. 13. Double action. Pulling the trigger both cocks the hammer and fires the gun. 14. Double barrel. Two barrels side by side or one on top of the other, usually on a shotgun. 15. Gauge. It refers to the diameter of the barrel on a shotgun in terms of the number of lead balls, the size of the bore it would take to weigh 1 pound, 10 gauge, 12 gauge etc. 410 gauge rarely refer to caliber, but it is worded as such to refer to a shotgun. 16. Hammer. It is a metal rod or plate that typically drives a firing pin to strike the cartridge primer to detonate the powder. 17. Ignition, the way in which powder is ignited. Old muzzle-loading weapons used flintlock or percussion caps. Modern guns use primers that are rimfire or center-fire. 18. Lands and grooves. Lands are the metal inside the barrel left after the spiral grooves are cut to produce the rifling. 19. Magazine. This is a device for storing cartridges in a repeating firearm for loading into the chamber. 20. Magnum. For rifles and handguns, an improved version of a standard cartridge which uses the same caliber and bullets, but has more powder, giving the fired bullet more energy. For shotgun loads, Magnum shells have more powder and may have increased length with more shot pellets. 21. Muzzle. It is the end of the barrel out of which the bullet comes. 22. Pistol. It is synonym for a handgun that does not have a revolving cylinder. 23. Powder. Modern gun cartridges use smokeless powder that is relatively stable, of uniform quality, and leaves little residue when ignited. For centuries black powder was used and was quite volatile, ignited at low temperature or shock, was composed of irregular size grains, and left a heavy residue after ignition, requiring frequent cleaning of bore. 24. Primer. It is a volatile substance that ignites when struck to detonate the powder in a cartridge. Rimfire cartridges have primer inside the base. Centerfire cartridges have primer in a hole in the middle of the base of the cartridge case. 25. Revolver. It is a handgun that has a cylinder with holes to contain the cartridges. The cylinder revolves to bring the cartridge into position to be fired. This is a single action when the hammer must be cocked before the trigger can fire the weapon. It is double action when pulling the trigger both cock and fires the gun. 26. Riffling. It is the spiral grooves cut inside a gun barrel that give the bullet a spinning motion. The metal between the grooves is called a land. 27. Rimfire. The cartridge has the primer distributed around the periphery of the base. 28. Safety. A mechanism of inaction to prevent firing of the gun. 29. Shotgun. A gun with a smooth bore that shoots cartridges that contain shot or small metal pellets of lead or steel as the projectiles. 30. Smoothbore weapons have no rifflings, typically shotguns. Most handguns and rifles have rifflings. 31. Sights. The device on top of the barrel that allow the gun to be aimed. 32. Silencer, a device that fits over the muzzle of the barrel to muffle the sound of a gunshot. Most work by baffling the escape of gases. 33. Single action. The hammer must be manually cocked before the trigger can be pulled to fire the gun. 34. Smokeless powder. It refers to modern gunpowder, which is not really powder but flakes or nitrocellulose and other substances. Not really smokeless but much less so than black powder. 35. Stock. It is a wood, metal, or plastic frame that holds the barrel and action and allows the gun to be held firmly. Composition of gunpowder. 1. Sulfur. 2. Charcoal. 3. Saltpeter, potassium nitrate. Gunpowder first appeared in China but used primarily in firecrackers. Different firing mechanisms of firearm. 1. Matchlock, employed a burning wick on a spring that was locked back and released into a pan of powder upon pulling a trigger. The powder in the pan then ignited, sending flame through a small hole into the barrel chamber of the weapon, igniting a larger powder charge in the chamber and sending the projectile, bullet, forward. 2. Wheel-lock. In the early 16th century, improvement included the wheel-lock mechanism in which a spinning wheel against a metal plate showered sparks into the pan holding the priming powder. 3. Flintlock. Developed in the early 17th century, flint is released by the trigger mechanism that strikes a steel plate to shower sparks into the pan filled with powder. 4. Percussion, evolved in the 19th century, consisted of a hammer that was locked and when released, struck a cap containing a volatile primer that ignites on impact, sending a flame through a small tube into the barrel chamber.